So I'd love you to take us through the product portfolio, what we're looking at, how it works, and just, you've got a device on right now,
Yeah,
right?
I'm always wearing one. Well, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time, because I'm always hopping around in different time zones. So it's always good to keeping the best health, if you will.
That's true.
So yeah, so I'll kind of give you the backdrop, and then in terms of, because each of these products have a story behind it, right?
Cool.
Because we talked about the platform, we talked about the individual, and we're thinking about it holistically, right? So the first product, this is the Biotricity, and this is a smart diagnostic product that is collecting and recording your ECG. You're going to get it prescribed, and when you're wearing it, it's analyzing your ECG while also recording it. And so what that means is 3 o'clock in the morning, if something happens, it's actually going to send it off to a call center. Their nurse can review that data. If they review that data and they think that they need to do emergency response, they can actually deal with that whole process.
So this is, I just want to make sure I understand that. So this is a device, is this slightly different than the one you're wearing?
So it's very similar technology.
Yeah.
The difference here is this is prescribed, it's electrode based, so you have to use a sticky electrode.
Right.
And it's actually prescribed, right? It's an RX based device, you're going to get it, and it's going to be used for diagnostics. So if you're feeling a palpitation, you go to a cardiologist, they're going to put this device on. And the safety or the patient quality aspect is that if something happens while you're wearing the device, so oftentimes doctor says, okay, wear it for 15 days. What if something happens between day 1 and day 15? It's a smart device, so it'll actually let the doctor know.
To intervene.
To intervene.
Call
Correct.
you and say, hey, I'm sending an ambulance or something right now.
Exactly. And traditional technology today, right, like the Band-Aids and Holter products, you wear it. After you wear it, you mail it back.
Right.
2 weeks later, you get a report. So if something happens to you in between that 1 month period, nobody's going to know about it. So this is a solution to like solve that.
Got it.
So once you get diagnosed, we're saying, okay, well, what happens to you? So today you're going to get a prescription, you're going to get a procedure, but then every 6 months, every 3 months, every year, you're going to be back to diagnose because the doctor has no idea what's going on. He or she wants to monitor whether or not you're stable.
A small window in time.
Correct.
Got it.
So we said, okay, well, we need to solve that problem. So then we said, okay, we're going to create an RPM solution focused on the cardiac. So this is where we said, okay, let's build this BioHeart product, which is really now this is consumer product that is collecting your heart rhythm continuously, so forever. So if you're wearing it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, this is not a device you have to give back to the doctor, but the data is available for your physician to review.
Same quality of data almost?
Almost the same quality. Obviously, there's going to be more noise because we're not using the sticky electrodes because, sticky electrodes are for diagnostic purposes. This is more about long-term collection. We remove the noise and that information, but at least if you feel something, you can push a button and it'll create a snapshot. You can go back in time. You can do post-workout. You can record sessions on it. And when I say record sessions, it's always recording. So it's really like, think about it like a book, right? You're just creating bookmarks. So if you wear it for a year, you have a year of data on yourself.
Got it.
And then you have these bookmarks, right? You can analyze just your sleep section or just your workout section or your recovery rates.
So sometimes when I take meds for heart failure, right? So it plays with my blood pressure at times, right? So sometimes when I stand up too quick, I might get a little dizzy. I might want to hit a bookmark on that just to see if there's some correspondence outside of blood pressure. It might be something with heart rate.
Correct. And so, I'll give you an example. So I'm wearing one right now. Okay. So you can see this is my, heart rhythm right now, live. You can see the quality. It's very good. And then now let's say I wanted to look at something historically. So I can go back and I can look at my data here. So now I can click any point over here in time and go back in history, right? And see, okay, what was I doing at that time?
I want to know what you were doing right there.
Right,
That's an
exactly.
outlier data point,
right. So exactly. So it's a 102. So maybe I was getting up, maybe I was, and I can go and look at that, exactly that outlier, and it will load instantly. And okay, so the ECG looks fine, but this is something that's an outlier, and I can analyze that. And I can go historically, right, as an individual. And if, let's say it's still weird and I don't know, I can create a bookmark here, and I can send it to my physician instantly right now.
And what if I worked with, well, you're an Android there, so you're an outlier. But what if I worked directly with an Apple or Android, and said, at that time, I want you to geographically place me where I was and what was going on at that point in time. So now I could start to collaborate. Where were you? Were you sitting down? Were you standing up? Were you in an airport hustling through to do the
Right.
OJ, right? I can't use OJ anymore because that's a politically incorrect thing to make my flight.
Right.
Right? So that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so you can do exactly all of that. And so if you're using Apple or your Google, it's integrated with Google Fit and Apple Health and all of that information. So you can actually geotag it and collect it and summarize it. And the other good thing about the way we've designed it is that any outlier, you can actually set a threshold saying that if I see an outlier above this level or lower than this level, I want you to automatically create a bookmark. And then I can take all those bookmarks and send them to my physician, or when I see the physician 3 months later, I can see that information. So then, going back to what you were saying, so you were talking about the medication and blood pressure. So we said, okay, many of these patients, it's not just about the heart. That's not holistic. So some of these patients have sleep apnea. Some of these patients have, hypertension. So then we brought in blood pressure, pulse oximetry, and temperature. Temperature is actually quite important because, we saw in the pandemic, a lot of times your temperature is increasing. So you might see your ECGs coming in later. So you say, my ECG's up. Well, you may have a virus, check your temperature. So there's this kit that we created, which is supplementary biometrics. So heart is continuous, and then there's and it's collecting your respiration. And then we have supplementary biometrics if you're on a medication that may impact your blood pressure or may impact your temperature or may impact your pulse oximetry. So you can collect those data points as well and create this more holistic view of the patient.
Interesting. And then how does that get monitored?
So all of that goes through the same application. It all gets summarized together. So what's unique is you'll get your ECG in that moment in time, and then you get your blood pressure in that moment in time, your pulse oximetry in that moment in time, so you can get a holistic view. So every time you take any kind of reading, like let's say you take your blood pressure reading, it'll actually line up your ECG and all other biometrics at that same moment.
Interesting. Okay. So where does all this go? If I'm a consumer, how do I get it? How complicated is it to set up? What's the, is it Apple-esque where there's no instructions?
It's very Apple-esque, right? It should be pretty much you open it out of the box, you download the app, and then everything goes kind of seamlessly. You don't even have to pair, Bluetooth, certain devices. So these are Bluetooth-based devices. That device is an LTE-based device, so it's cellular, so you don't even need a connection. But even the concept of pairing, we've removed it. It'll automatically find the device, connect automatically, completely seamless. You basically wear it and forget it. And then what's great is if you've got a physician that's engaged with you, it'll actually summarize the information once you authorize the physician and automatically send it to them. So you actually don't even have to create it. Every month, it'll automatically create a summary report and send it. If the physician says, I want it every week, it'll create a report every week with an analysis of all your biometrics. And of course, that is an economically reimbursable for the physician. So now they're actually delivering you care remotely, but they're collecting that information, and there's a reason for the nurse or the physician to look at it.
Motivated to look at it. Fascinating. Well, thanks for a peek into where health is going, not disease is going. Anything else we should talk about while we're here?
No, I think that one of the key things that we've also focused on is cost, right? I think people talk about, this is all great, but what about from a cost perspective? And one of the things that we really focused on at Biotricity was how do we make these devices cost effective, affordable, right? We talk about, continuous heart monitoring. There is a way to do continuous heart monitoring today. It's called, a surgical implant, right? And that is incredibly expensive. Not everybody has access to that. Not every insurance will pay for that. So how do you make technology cheap enough and reusable? And reusable is key because if it's reusable versus disposable, first of all, environmental factors, we have enough garbage. But more importantly, if it's something is reusable, it actually lowers the cost because you can actually use it on multiple patients and rotate. And that's one of the things that we focus on the diagnostic side. And for personal use, if we can bring the costs down, then it's more accessible, more affordable for everybody. And to do that non-invasively with the same quality is a huge improvement, I think, in health. Yeah,
and you bring up a great point is we can talk about the implantable CardioMEMS device all we want. Those are typically happening in tier 1 hospitals. Yeah. But what about access for the rural health? for the people who were not able to go in for a surgery and the heart monitoring side. But how about, again, rural, second, third world nations? That really opens up this gateway tremendously and provides us with enormous data sets, which then can inform us about future solutions as well.
No, that's exactly right. And when you talk about the rural markets or the developing countries, and that's one of the things, again, we really paid attention to that, because especially in the US, right, you go to the rural markets and these patients, forget a cardiologist, they don't have access to a physician. It's a 2-hour drive. So they'll do it, but then what about in between, right? And so if we can enable them with devices and they're cheap enough and affordable enough that they can have access, now you can have the best cardiologist that's 3 hours away, and they can support that patient. They can support that entire community. And what has happened now is we actually have some of our customers, they've bought RVs and they're driving out once a week and providing technology to all of these rural individuals. And this really become affordable because they said, well, you've made it economically feasible because the costs are down, and there's a reason that we could do it. We could never do it before because the cost was too high.
And you're getting a much higher fidelity signal to then be able to give more precise care.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. Going to be exciting to watch Biotricity's trajectory. No doubt about this one for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Appreciate it.